And at the same time, some people might argue, well, these ladies, they were queens. They were given privilege of being close to Genghis Khan. But do you think the same rules applied of the equality of adherence to talent as far as the women's participation was concerned at that time?
It's true that these ladies were great queens, but if you look at Mother Erlun, she was just a girl growing up in Mongolia. Or if you look at Queen Bertha, she was only a girl growing up in Mongolia. Later they became queens. So they had learned from their life in Mongolia just as common women without going to school, without a special education. Now with his daughters, of course, it's a different situation because they grew up in a very powerful family. But if you look at the achievements of the daughters, and you look at Genghis Khan's comments about his daughters compared to his sons he loved, but his sons all repeatedly disappointed him. They quarreled with each other, they sometimes drank too much. But you read Secret History and you never find one complaint that Genghis Khan makes about his daughters. He only has words of strength for them. And when he tells them he's sending them to rule the empire, he gives them a speech and he tells them what to do in order to preserve their name and their character and to administer the law fairly and justly. And these women did what he said. They followed his example.
And also about the name of your book. It says The Secret Story of Mongolian Queens, almost the same as The Secret Story of Mongols. Have you specifically used this similar naming, or there are any connection between these two books?
For me, there's an important connection because as I studied the secret history of the Mongols, it became clear that certain sections of the book had been cut out. And in particular, section number 215, almost everything was missing. And so if you look at different editions today, you'll find that the authors have taken a line from somewhere else and put it in section 215. But it was about the daughters. And so different authors disagree what line should go there. But I'm not so interested in the one line as in the whole section. 215 is missing. And he says there he is going to reward his daughters. And then the section is cut out. He has just told the assembly the story of Altani and rewarded her. Then he turns to reward the daughters. And somebody removed it. During the Yuan dynasty in China, someone removed it. So I felt that not only was it wrong, but I felt even somewhat a little bit angry perhaps that how did somebody have the right to cut this history up? How did somebody have the right to hide it from us? If the sections weren't numbered, we wouldn't even know. But because they were already numbered, we could tell that section was missing. So I wanted to find out, what is it about the daughters of Genghis Khan that that person did not want me to know? So that became the quest, was to find. And actually, I was calling the book at first just The Daughters of Genghis Khan. But then somebody later said, you know, it's really the secret history. And I said, that's true. I'm trying to restore that part of the secret history. Not exactly, but at least the information and the spirit of the part of the secret history about the queens.
Right. Wonderful. And we truly appreciate for all the work you have done. And I understand as a continuation or as a part of this project on the Mongolian queens, you have also the audio version. If you could tell us about that.
Yes, just recently the audio version was released. It consists of 12 CDs. It's quite long, but it's the entire book on the queens. And then I'm very happy to say that there's the beautiful music of Mr. Jansonorov in the background. So I feel that it lifts the book. Even if the words are boring, I think that the music is so beautiful. And so this was issued with the hope that some people who maybe don't have the time to read can listen to it. It also can be broadcast on the radio, and it's available in different formats.
And as a researcher, as a writer, for you, making people read your books is one of the important parts in your process of the creation. But at the same time, we look at the issue how the benefits are used from those books. If you could explain, and I heard that you are doing something extraordinary with all the revenue which you are gaining from the sales of these books.
I want people to know about my book. If they would like to read it, I'm happy. But I feel like it doesn't matter when in life. You don't have to read a book the day it comes out. You can read it 100 years later if you want. It doesn't really matter. So if people are interested, I want them to read it. And I try to write the kind of book that I want to read. But from the beginning with the Chinggis Khan book, it was a successful book in many countries. But I did not want to take the money for myself because this wasn't my history. It wasn't my story. This was the story of the people of Mongolia. So I said I would return all the money to projects in Mongolia. And so I began doing that just in a personal way at first. And then some friends of mine came up with the idea that they should do it in a more systematic way. So then they decided that the future money that comes would go into a foundation. And one of the first things that they would try to do with the foundation is to give a book prize for the best book in history in Mongolia. So beginning in the year 2011, they will make an award using the money that they get from these sales. And other cultural and historic projects will also benefit from it. But I prefer that the decision about this be made by the Mongolian people who are running the foundation, not me as a foreigner. I realize Mongolians know what they need. They know what the society needs. And this is a small amount of money in one way, but if it's used correctly, if it helps one child to advance in life, or it encourages one writer who is having trouble with the finances, then I will be very happy.
And I'm sure you are seen as a role model for being able to overcome all the challenges in the process of doing research for the topic which is in your heart. And I'm sure among our viewers there are many researchers and young people who also would like to find the passion in their life. What advice would you give to our viewers in pursuit of their passion?
Well, many times I told myself, oh, you can't do this. You didn't study in the university the Mongolian language. You didn't become a Mongolian historian. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. But I looked around, and here I was in my 50s, and even though I had never spoken a word of Mongolian, even though I had never been to Mongolia, I realized that no one was writing the book that I wanted to read about Mongolia. And so if I didn't do it, no one would do it. That's the way I felt. I could be wrong about that. But so I came here and I said, even though I'm just now starting to learn the language, and I remember struggling, just the first word to learn to say, Baixla, or the hardest for me of all was Utlan Loish. I thought, Utlan Loish, that's the most difficult word in the whole world. So I was struggling and already in my 50s, and I was like a child. I felt like I was 5 years old. And I was struggling with the names in the secret history, and the geography of Mongolia was new to me, and the food was new to me. But I loved it so much, and it didn't matter that I hadn't been trained to do it. It didn't matter that I wasn't the world's expert on Mongolian history or Mongolian language. I had this drive in my heart. I loved Mongolia so much. And I wanted the whole world to love Mongolia the way I did. I wanted to share with everybody my experience in Mongolia. And with me, it was an experience in history. And so I wrote the book, even though I wasn't a Mongol specialist.
But still, you have